Good evening, kindred. I am Teranz, and welcome back to more Vampire the Masquerade Shadows of New York. Last time we got embraced and had a night off before we were being introduced to the before the prince and the Camarilla. Oh, excuse me. So with that, let's continue. Also, I totally forgot the voice I was doing, so this will be fun. March 2020. Back at it again at Big Beat Burger. Familiar sounds, familiar smells, familiar faces. Yet again, I'm recalling that night when everything finally seemed to change for the better. I mean, it's not like I wasn't expecting everything to go back to the old depressing normal. Even in the thick of it, the rational part of me still recognized my state as temporary. But with these highs, there's always the hope it won't end, or maybe that's an ego death, or maybe that an ego death will finally occur. Be satisfied. I command you. Here's all the logical evidence for why you should be satisfied. Here's the obvious direction for your life, and here's a detailed explanation of how you should treat the people that care for you. No dice. I always fall back in the same old habits. It's like they were encoded deep in my DNA. The aimlessness, the powerlessness, the spiritual exhaustion. These goddamn fast food trips. The stupid fucking self-loathing, now amplified whenever I drink somebody's blood. Maybe I should just blame it all on the misfortune of my birth. You do this social climbing until you disassociate, and then you're just this untethered, constantly frustrated ball of dumb desires. Except I'm sort of immortal right now, and I need to figure out what to do next. Oh man, excuse me. I watched this obscure Asian movie once. Eli Lima Sabachthani, starring Tadanobu Asano, one of the coolest guys in the world. He plays this Merzbow like figure, a legendary noise musician. There's this mysterious virus that's spreading around the world, causing despair and mass suicides. A rich CEO's granddaughter gets sick and longs to die, so he spends a fortune searching for the cure. Turns out Asano and his friend, played by this violent onsen geisha guy, are traveling through Japan searching the corpse-strewn towns and fields for any unique item that can produce beautiful sounds. As it turns out, the avant-garde walls of noise they create are able to heal the infected. The CEO begs the band to help, offering them all the money they could want, but for some reason, they refuse. Through a series of flashbacks, concerts, and vignettes, a mystery unfolds. Eventually, we realize that Asano's music is not just a remedy, it's also a cause of the virus. Whenever it connects with people, they get this hunger for more extreme, more novel experiences. And eventually they hit a wall. Nothing can satisfy them anymore. They lose their will to live. Not even the musicians are spared from this curse. They know the end will come sooner or later. The girl is saved by a mind-blowing concert, but the tragedy is merely postponed, not averted. The last shot of a Jesus-like Asano silently considering his role as savior and destroyer stayed with me. The form of the film is abrasive, little to no narrative coherence, some weird cartoonish creative choices, the Japanese noise track, the very free-form and hard to understand weave of themes. But at this point, movies like this are all that truly connect with me. Oh, excuse me. I'm the New York City representative of the Lasombra clan now, also known as the Night Clan. They are masters of shadows who can distort reflections and make modern tech go haywire in their presence. Last year, a few months before I was embraced, the Lasombra had joined with the Camarilla, the biggest and most traditional sect in the vampire world. The two groups actually used to fight each other, but our leaders found some intel that made them reconsider their strategy, so they sent a diplomatic mission to parley with their historical enemies. The deal they got in Chicago was simple. An unlife for an unlife. For every Lasombra vampire allowed to join the Ivory Tower, one Lasombra had to meet their ultimate end. I still remember the name of the woman who met her final death so I could begin my unlife. Her name was Hester Reed, a sworn enemy of the Camarilla, a guerrilla fighter who spent decades opposing them. She was someone with far better principles than mine, from what I've gathered. Well, whoever she was, her execution by my sire served to convince the NYC elites to give us Lasombra a chance. They set out to look for a mutually agreed upon candidate who would become the clan's rep in this city. My sire searched for someone who gave the impression she was more than she appeared. The local court was looking for someone they could walk all over. After long negotiations, they decided I was a good compromise. They proceeded to systematically destroy my entire life just to make me show I was psychologically strong enough to join their ranks. The turncoat special, they called it. Somehow I succeeded. And it eventually led me right back to where I started. I stopped writing and put my pen down. Will that be all? Yes, Miss Duval, I hope you enjoy your stay in London. Oh, I very much doubt I will. Just like every cultured person, I think the only good Englishman is a dead Englishman. Must be nice, traveling the world and all that. Caracas, Mogadishu, Shanghai, the blood tastes the same anywhere you go. The biggest difference is that your duties become more of a hassle. Miss Duval, every word you uttered tonight just made you more punchable. That will be all. Tell Kadir said hello and farewell. Safe travels. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, psycho. Ah, well. I'm the lone Lasombra in this town, and my representational role means jack shit. No title, no perks, no whatever. Right now, I'm just the court's gopher, doing all sorts of work nobody else will touch. My main duties, being some sort of immigration officer. See, New York City is probably the biggest vampire travel hub in the USA, and definitely the biggest one on the East Coast. Almost every kindred arriving from Africa and Europe come through here. The local Camarilla is nuts about bureaucracy and population control, so every vampire leaving or arriving in this town is supposed to check with me to inform me about their travels. Well, in theory at least. The VIPs play by different rules. They take care of this stuff through connections and servants. But for the smaller fish, I'm like a vampire Statue of Liberty. The first bloodsucker every kindred coming to NYC should see. On paper, anyway. The first after the prince or Kadir, the Primogen Council, these things vary. Yeah, I'm a naturally traitorous Lasombra, so they still prefer being traditional and hands-on about these things. As I said, at the end of the day, I'm just a gopher, and this work only serves to remind me I'm not quite in, just standing at the gate. They haven't even given me an office. I just meet everyone in public places such as coffee shops or this fast food restaurant. Some consider this an insult and lash out at me, but luckily, most of them understand we're in the same boat. Only here because we're curs who need to be reminded of our place from time to time. Speaking of, my last client is 15 minutes late and I still have more errands to run tonight. This is getting irritating. To be honest, I should just find some self-respect and leave. But I won't. My sorry upbringing left me with a stupid sense of responsibility. 10 more minutes pass. Eventually, an unfamiliar woman appears by the door. She tells someone to stand by the door and walks in. Long chestnut hair, body stuck in her late teens. By the looks of it, a fashionable scarf covering most of her face, elegant clothes, dignified walk. I signal her to sit in front of me, trying my best not to let my impatience show. She obliges. You here to check in? I am. Julia Sowinski, I presume? She's scanning her surroundings like we're at a circus. I hope you won't mind if I make it quick. I'm needed in Elysium. Name? Catherine Weiss. Huh. I swear I've heard that name before. Someone else's description of her crosses my mind. That weird lady who owns the art hole but is never there? Weird. So it is her, Catherine Weiss, the owner of the art hole, de facto headquarters of the New York City Camarilla. For fuck's sake, Julia, what are you doing calling her weird right off the bat? God knows you've already made a fool of yourself in front of enough VIPs in this city. Recover. I'm sorry, it's just that I still don't know many people here, so I have to go by the descriptions I'm given by members of the Primogen. Well, the description is mostly correct, outside of that one word that slightly perplexes me. Pot calling the kettle black sounds like. From what I gathered, it's just that your interests are rumored to be not fully in line with the Camarillas, and it irks some folks up there. Being a keeper of the Elysium is not enough for some, I see. I suspected as much, but what can you do? She seems chill. Good. Anyway, Catherine Weiss. Wow. Yes, want me to spell it? People often have trouble getting it right. Forgive my indiscretion, it's just that people of your stature usually don't bother checking in with me. They usually report their arrival to one of the Primogen and they make all the arrangements. I heard Prince Panhard is busy with the preparations for her big party. I assumed that if I spared her some paperwork she'd appreciate it as a gesture of goodwill. Besides, I wanted to meet the infamous Lasombra representative out of sheer curiosity. My interest peaked once I heard about her. She looks around knowingly. Unique circumstances. Yes, Prince Helene Panhard had trouble justifying the exorbitant rent my property would need. That's literal pennies for her. As far as I know, she's been sitting on an empty property since last year. Looks like they've got it out for you. Bad. That's what I assumed, but it's nice to get a confirmation. Well, it's not like my clan's been particularly popular in these parts. At least that's what I've heard. Sins of the Fathers and so on. Yes, just to make sure you've never met Hester, but you know of her? I do know I wouldn't be here if not for her. Have you two met? No, I've only heard the name once or twice. We had similar outlooks on many issues, though we tended to come up with completely different solutions. In any case, I think it's meaningful that Hester died so that you could live. They feared her. Now they fear you, and that's why they're keeping you down. If anyone who's not a VIP said this to me, I'd laugh in their face. Oh, I get what she's doing. She's trying to buy my favors. Let's not act like I'm easy to please. Stick to business. Time will tell. In the meantime, I'll need you to help me out with my documentation. Of course. So, where are you coming from? Washington, D.C. The way she says it the way people in Hollywood movies say it. The way that suggests her Washington is wildly different from the Washington you and I would see. What were you doing there? Take a guess. Government work? Write that down. It ought to amuse Helen a little bit. If you say so. Date and hour of arrival? She takes out a plane ticket and slides it towards me. It's all here. 1 a.m. Got it. Method of transit, plane, purpose of visit. Meeting with Prince ought to work just fine. I guess. Estimated duration of visit? Undefined. Write in 6 months if you really need to. Place of accommodation, conditions of intended stay. The art hole. Conditions should be adequate. You tell me I tend to be happy with Airbnb. Home sweet home? I'm not certain that I ever felt particularly at home here. That makes two of us. Curious, do you have nothing holding you here? The face of a blonde-haired friend appears in my mind's eye, then vanishes. There's nothing holding me anywhere. I see. A prolonged silence. She stares into my eyes and I return the stare. She's studying me. It's unnerving, but I do my best not to turn away. Eventually, she smiles. Didn't you say you were short on time? Oh, God, yes. Kadir will kill me. I quickly begin to collect my stuff from underneath the table. You can simply inform him I paid you a visit. He'll understand and he'll pass it on to everyone who should be in the know. Do you need anything else? I'm fine. I was about to ask you that myself. You're the one asking questions here. That's all for me. Good. We'll see each other soon. I hope. The party tomorrow night? I wasn't invited. She gives me a pitying look. I understand. Well, if not given the opportunity, we should make our own. I'll be in touch. Good night, Miss Weiss. I wish you a pleasant stay. Good night. And don't rush these things. You've got your whole on life ahead of you, and you're in a position where you can take it easy. Take your time. Get a different perspective. I nod and walk slowly out the door. When I lose sight of the restaurant, I sprint towards the subway. Slow night? I wish. You're late again. By the way, I hope you have a good excuse. Kadir al-Asami. Kadir al-Asami, the mighty sheriff of New York City, is not happy with me. No wonder. I met him in front of Elysium 30 minutes later than the time we had agreed on. Yeah, well, Catherine fucking Weiss decided to arrive fashionably late. A likely story. She's supposed to be out of the city. If you think I'm pulling your leg, boss, feel free to check my report. I pass him all of the official papers the way I do every other night. Kadir stares me down for a good few seconds, then his steely gaze softens. You're serious. Weiss in McDonald's with the mask and elegant clothes surrounded by the smell of French fries and hamburger patties. That must have been one hell of a sight. Technically, it was BBB, not McDonald's, but yeah. God, I made such a fool of myself. First thing I did, I quoted somebody calling her a weirdo. I wanted to die on the spot. Serves you right, you walking faux pas. I've been trying to teach you to control your tongue, but you never learn. It's a new gaffe every week with you. Still, there's good news and bad news. Nope, wrong thing. Back up. All right. Still, there's good news and bad news. The good news is Catherine has a fondness for vampires of humble beginnings. Probably why she decided to see you in your, shall we say, natural habitat. She one of those rich art scene assholes who seeks out working class cred? I did say something about watching your tongue. The bad news is she's very astute, so she can recognize a moron like you straight away. You never stood a chance of impressing her. Oh, shut up. You still need me for anything here? I'll get on it straight away. I wouldn't be standing out here chatting with you if I hadn't taken care of my duties. 30 minutes is all it took to finish preparations for the big party. I'm about to see everyone off. Sorry. Couldn't be helped, I suppose, and it's more your loss than mine. I just want some company tonight, and you could really use the chance to appear here on official duties, so everyone can get to know your face. Heavens know your fast food job isn't going to get you anywhere. You need to, what do they call it? Hustle? You don't need to tell me that, but it's not like being paraded around for a bunch of blue-blooded douchebags is... He somehow manages to give me a painful nudge in the back without so much as a hint of visible movement. Language, you fool. They're coming out. Just stand here in silence for 5 minutes and focus on not embarrassing yourself any further, will you? Got it. The first two silhouettes appear in the doorway of the art hole. An old man in a wheelchair pushed forward by his young servant. Haven't seen either one of them before. Mr. Payne, the night is still young. Hope you find the rest of it pleasant. Payne, the wheelchair. I've heard about him. Addison Payne, one of the American Camarilla's main connections to the government and Wall Street. Disabled in quite a few ways. Needs a servant to communicate. I'd be full of resentment if I was embraced in this condition, but apparently, Payne is nothing but grateful for his immortality. He keeps writing fervent defenses of the traditions and Camarilla customs. He wordlessly shakes Kadir's hand, but doesn't even deign to acknowledge me. At least his servant gives me a small bow. I return it, they leave. Kadir turns to the next person leaving. Hi, Regent. Can't wait to see you in your outfit. Spare me, Sheriff. These fancy dress parties cause me enough suffering without your help. I can only hope you haven't conspired with Helene to embarrass me with this gift. She points to a shrink-wrapped set of clothes she's carrying inside her coat. Kadir smirks briefly. I didn't have to. As you well know, Prince Panhard displays a considerable foresight in the matter of party planning. Yes, if there's one thing she's deathly serious about, it's frivolities. A recognizably mortal quality, especially for a prince. We ought to celebrate it, not oppose it. Don't worry, Sheriff. I'm a big girl who knows her etiquette. I will play your game, amuse the crowd a little bit, and return to my study as fast as possible. Aisling Sturbridge, High Regent of the Chantry of the Five Boroughs, a hero of the Battle of New York, the biggest warlock in town. Could be a prince herself if she didn't have her eyes on a bigger prize. Oh, excuse me. Thing is, nobody knows what that prize is. They only know that it has something to do with... excuse me. Knows that it's something to do with the goal of her thaumaturgical research. Whoever tried to find out what it is failed violently. Oh, I'm sure you're going to have some fun, Miss Sawinski. Have some fun. Miss Sawinski here just informed me Catherine Weiss is back in town. It is safe to assume she will join our festivities. You're kidding me. It's not safe to assume it's certain. She told me she will be here tomorrow night. Weiss. Excellent. I'd love to catch up with her. The barely concealed venom in her voice clearly suggests that, in fact, she'd hate to catch up with her. Yes, it looks like tomorrow night will be very special, but for now, I bid you adieu. And she's gone. Is there some kind of story between Aisling and Weiss that I should be aware of? You could say that. High Regent Sturbridge once attempted to call for a blood hunt on Weiss. Wow, why? I've heard 5 different stories, 5 different versions of the story, and all of them seem plausible. Catherine's relationship with the city is odd to say the least, but hush for now. He's obviously trying to kill the conversation, and the appearance of Thomas Arturo gives him a perfect way out. Mr. Arturo? Ah, Al-Asami, keep up the good work, eh? Of course. Thomas Arturo, an architect by trade. He is a herald, a member of Prince Panhard's inner circle, an eccentric whose thoughts seem to be 10 times faster than his words. Any tasks for me, Mr. Arturo? I'm always ready to prove myself. Ah, yes. He disappears into the night. Well, that was brief. Maybe I should just stand in their way. That might force them to properly acknowledge my existence. You severely underestimate their dedication to ignoring whelps like you. And just in case you're serious, I beg of you, don't. I've been meaning to ask you this for a while now, but never had the opportunity. You really hate Arturo's guts, don't you? He carefully measures his diplomatic response. I have no strong feelings about Thomas Arturo whatsoever. Yeah, well, considering you're always listing positives about every local Camarilla representative under the moon, you might as well call him other words. Language, whelp. And as for Arturo, I will share my opinion about him as soon as I come up with one that sticks for more than a week. A group of kindred emerged from the art hole, rushing towards the street. Only a noble-looking woman stops next to us. She's wearing a hijab, but curiously enough, doesn't hide her hair beneath it. Primogen. If you're rude enough to stare, you'd quickly notice this clothes serves mostly to cover up her horrifying scars. Ah, Kadir. Oh, and you. Oh, and young Julia. I'm doing my best not to stare because Samira is one of the few NYC Camarilla figures who hasn't been an asshole to me yet. Oh. Okay. Banu Hakim. Got it. Still here? Did the prince require the clan of the Hunt's counsel in some matter? Yes. I advised her that no matter how hard she tries, she shouldn't expect me to wear a different costume tomorrow night. She's the Banu Hakim Primogen. Just like the Lasombra, their clan was independent from the Camarilla until relatively recently. However, they negotiated a better deal than we did. They have a Primogen for one. Hailing from the Middle East, the Banu Hakim are drawn to the practice of justice. The rules must be upheld and every transgression punished. They don't have much of a say in NYC, but the prince often seeks their judgment. It's just good PR. I trust she was understanding. Those are beautiful clothes. Thank you so much. I am eager to see the outfit you came up with. How are you, Julia? Have you seen any lights at the end of the tunnel? Yeah, and I'm pretty certain it's a train. Sorry to hear. I trust you're pestering the prince and your superiors to improve your standing. It's a process. Oh, Julia, you won't achieve anything if you don't keep reaching for it. Kadir, weren't you supposed to teach her the ropes? I'm trying to, Primogen, but with this child, it's always a process. I can only wish you good luck then. Good night, Julia. Good night, Kadir. Good night. Have a safe trip. The art hole has to be almost empty by now. You like her, don't you? Stop with your class clown act, whelp. It only serves to reveal deep insecurities. Wow, that's harsh. It's factual. If I were as harsh as you claim. She did tell us both to call her Samira, but you're still keeping your distance with that Primogen shit. Watch your profanity, and don't project your fantasies onto me. I won't give you a lesson about professional boundaries, but I suspect the way you will eventually learn it. Will be extremely unpleasant. Am I interrupting something good, folks? Even though I'm constantly pestering him, Kadir's composure is unshaken. His response comes swift and unfazed. Not at all, Mr. Vander Wyden. Heading back to your office? You know me, my dear sheriff. Where else would I go? Now that's curious. Even though Carter Vander Wyden is a Primogen as well, Malkavian to be precise, I don't hear Kadir address him as such. Hope to see you tomorrow night. Oh, I will absolutely show up, provided I can. But just in case, I already apologize for not making it to the prince. Simply drowning in work these days. The rhythms, tempo, and intonation patterns of his voice are so familiar. Half of it sounds like JFK, the other half exactly like Barack Obama. Just like his appearance, it all feels so fake. He's old money, of course, comes from a long line of Dutch merchants who originally settled in the New York region, runs a wildly successful law office, rubs elbows with elites of both kindred and kind varieties alike. He seems perfect in every way, and that's why he's so unnerving. He's a child of Melkov and must be blighted with some affliction. But whatever it is, he doesn't let it show. Hard not to wonder what he's hiding. The celebrations are planned to last all week. Surely you will find the time. I pray I will, my good man. I pray I will. In case you need to reach me, you know where to find me. Have a good one. He doesn't even register my presence before leaving. Sometimes I think they're all simply hoping I'll go away. As Carter drives away in his limousine, Kadir shakes his head. You wanted to hear about which member of the New York City's Camarilla I dislike the most? Yes? He shoots me a knowing glance and smirks. Too bad. They're all my dear colleagues and I deeply respect every single one of them. Sure you do. You wouldn't want to blurt out something that could lock you out of Mr. Vanderweyden's legal services, would you, you ass kisser? I do expect to find myself in need of a good defense attorney when my broke, incompetent, and foul-mouthed assistant finally pushes me over the edge. Rude. Do you need me? Rude. Do you still need me here? I need to swing by St. Patrick's tonight. Don't worry, we're almost done. The prince is coming out. Alright, I am going to save that for next time because this video is starting to get a little long, so thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.